Welcome to the Real Estate Revival Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Humble, and I get to highlight incredible Canadian stories. And so this is the show where we talk about real estate, we talk about business development, and we talk about real people doing real deals right now in real time. And so tonight I have an awesome guest, somebody who is actually from my hometown, Windsor, Ontario, Canada. And we knew each other years ago and got reacquainted in the last year and a half. And he's been awesome. Great guy, and I want to introduce you guys. Everybody, welcome to the stage, our friend, the one and only Michael Nikolica. Welcome, Mike. Good to have you.
Thanks, Ben. Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you, brother. Glad to have you. And so this is going to be a great episode, Mike, where we're going to talk about all things real estate, mindset, a couple different stuff. I'm going to kick it off with a couple questions. Before we get into the real estate part, would you give us a background on how do we get here? How do you get to real estate? What does that journey look like for you in the last number of years of your life?
Wow. To encapsulate all that time. I think it was when I was 22, came across a used bookstore, found an interesting book on real estate. I think it was called Creating Wealth. I was hooked right from there. I was always like looking at flyers that they used to leave at the grocery store and stuff like that. Those ones that they had in Windsor, and looking at houses. And I just realized that it was the way to go to kind of create financial freedom right off the bat. And bought my first duplex with my buddy. House hacked that. Before that was a household term, and then kind of just moved around a lot. Got hired by the police in Toronto and went from there to OPP and was moving around a lot. So I was fixing up houses, living in them, and then selling them and moving on, right? And then finally made my way back to Windsor 2015, and the market was much cooler then, and bought a bunch of places, fixed them, flipped some, did some long-term, some Airbnbs, a variety of different kind of things. So, and then we crossed paths, and the rest is history.
I always like to find out where were people at when I started. It's a little bit of a trip down memory lane. So 2006, the market was going up, and I had some buddies in real estate, and I'm brand new, and they're like, we do lease options. I'm like, wow, that's cool. Teach me. And I'm like learning stuff from different people. And some people I thought like had a lot of knowledge, and other people I think were just faking it till they made it. And so in 2006, the market's going up. 2008 takes a nosedive. 2009, it's in the pits. And so Windsor's on sale. And I remember seeing houses that used to be $80,000 selling for like $39,900. And I'm like, this is awesome. I called one of my friends, and I was like, hey, a house costs less than a Honda. And so I need a loan because I need some private capital. Banks are not going to finance me, but it's cheaper than a car. What was it like for you back then? Was your head in the real estate space back in the 2009, 10, 11, 12? Or were you oblivious to it? What were you doing back then?
No, I was definitely acutely aware, but yet in the way north Ontario, like 3 hours north of Kenora, and I was watching the crash kind of happen and thinking I had some capital tied up in a house in Toronto that hadn't sold, and I was just looking at it going, oh, Florida, Vegas, Phoenix, and also Windsor, of course, being my hometown. And I was thinking, man, it would be great to but I didn't have the skill set, and I didn't have the I guess the network to utilize to kind of realize that I didn't need all kinds of money to do this. I could have did it. And I wish I would have met you before that as a result. But, it was something that I was paying attention to, and I knew that there was going to be opportunities regardless because of the market cycle, right? In different places, at different times.
It's crazy when we look at the market, none of us can predict the future. So all we can do is prepare today and do whatever work is directly in front of us, and hopefully that we're right. And so when I saw those houses, Mike, they were like 30,000, 25,000. It was like, man, these are so cheap. Either the market's going to go to zero or it's going to come back up. And so I had a belief it was going to come back up. And so I got pretty aggressive with it. How do you deal with the unknown future? I know you're big into personal development, and you've done everything from Brazilian jiu-jitsu to like men's training to real estate training. And you're a person, I think, very much who values the personal development space. How do you think about the future from that standpoint? Like not really knowing what's coming, but trying to prepare yourself and try to be the best version of yourself in it anyways.
Yeah, I think you encapsulate it right there at the end. It's just, there's no certainty with the future. You can only spend time on not necessarily competing against others. I've never been a super competitive person, but I've realized I need to be competitive against my present self, right?
Mm.
So it's always striving to do something to get better, to add value to who I am, so that I can offer those skills back to the marketplace, because I feel like if you can do that, you'll always have a need, or there will always be a need for that, and you will always have value, right? So I don't mean as a human being, but I mean as a, producing member of society. So
That really resonates. I want to double click on that for a second. This is my thesis, Mike, that I've adopted and I think it's worked quite well for me. Step one is personal development, which means that you work on you, your mind, your health, your beliefs. And once you've engaged in personal development, ideally doing hard things, by the way, doing hard things has a way of just toughening you up and conditioning you. Um, and and when you do that, it prepares you for other hard things. That's my belief. And so personal development, number one. Then the second part of that is professional development. And so that's knowledge and understanding, strategy, wisdom, connections, people. And so if you start with personal development, I think you'll be in the best place to capture the opportunities in the professional development landscape. Once you've done A and B, then the third one for me is the financial development. I think you can make money in life as a byproduct of your personal and professional development. I think if you neglect personal development, it's very hard to be financially developed, because the attributes required to win in money are similar to the attributes required to win in other domains of life, relationships, health, etc. The discipline, the focus, the rules, etc. And so, what's your take on personal development? Have you found in the last 10 years a, looking in through a window, have you found any secrets, or have you found any items in personal development that if somebody's completely new to this conversation and they've never been in a mastermind or a community, what's something they should be mindful of in the personal development space, something they should think about?
I think of it as a constant and never-ending improvement in yourself that you have to just embody. That's reading, that's networking, that's elevating yourself through the communities that you join and that you offer value to. I resonate really strongly with the doing hard things, because if you're doing hard things all the time, that's why I love jujitsu so much. It's and if anybody does it, they would know it's the sport for people that love sucking at something. That's what it's coined, because it's very difficult to master, and I don't think anybody actually ever does. And that's just like life, like personal development. You're constantly working on yourself without the expectation of some sort of end result, like, okay, I'm good now, I've mastered everything, right? It's just that never-ending improvement, which I ascribe to.
Yeah. Now you've done some real estate deals even before you and I started connecting, just through life. So you've been in law enforcement for the last number of years and started. What's your real estate journey look like up until this point? Just kind of walk us through from the house hacking to the flips, to give us a rundown here so we have a good sense of where you're at today.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I started with a house hack situation. It was a duplex down by the university on Partington Ave. And man, I wish I would have kept that place. But at any rate, it was learning through kind of just doing, right? Fumbling through it. I didn't have a coach. I didn't have, like, back in that time, I think that was like 1999 or 2000, somewhere around there. And there wasn't the internet as we know it, and with all the communities and all of that support. So it was a lot of kind of fumbling through things and learning through trial and error. Figuring out how to tile, figuring out how to deal with tenants, and all of that side of it, right? Without some of the tools that we perhaps take for granted today. And but just still recognizing the fact that you have to keep going despite setbacks, right? And so it was just moving from that into other properties and living in them, which was a beneficial thing because there was the principal's residence exemption that I took advantage of, and not paying the tax on places that I lived in for quite some time. And then really going hard at it once I came back to Windsor and recognizing there was a good opportunity there because it wasn't the $39,000 deals anymore, but you're still seeing those $70,000, $80,000 homes. And the rents were, substantially, there was good cash flowing properties, let's say, at that time still. And then it was just the kind of examining, and without knowing, your process, right, with the wholesale, reno, like all of this, there was something in my mind that, I could cash flow more potentially and not deal with some of the issues with tenants that I had by Airbnb-ing them. There was a need and a demand for that. And then pivoting when, the markets changed during COVID, things, you couldn't Airbnb anymore, right? So there was a lot of kind of pivoting that I learned how to do, and also, networking and finding people to finance some of these deals. Some of the first private lenders that I acquired were at that time in late 22 or somewhere around there. And then exiting for a period of time at the peak of the market, and then starting back up again. So doing flips now predominantly, and expanding into the States. Started a corporation over there and looking at bigger multifamily deals and different opportunities. So
I like to ask this question because I want to see where people are at in their growth. And I love the personal, professional, financial development. Can you help us understand what is something that used to be a truth that you now think is a lie in real estate that maybe a lot of people believe, but maybe you've changed your mind on over the last months of development and growth, and point to maybe one thing?
Using your own capital. I was you opened my eyes to that quite a bit. Effectively, financing everything, doing everything, not delegating, all of that. Recognizing the power of leveraging your network, and the power of social media, right? Through some, and I haven't gone full tilt with it, but like just from the bit that I've done, gaining leads and followers that are now reaching out to me, asking, to partake in projects. So that's a huge thing that was my limiting belief, because I was like, I only have so much capital, I only have so much time. Now it's leveraging VAs, using technology such as high level, and sourcing private lenders as well. So
let's play devil's advocate, because when I say this stuff, people go, that's not how it works. And so let me give you some of those questions for once. Isn't it risky to use other people's money? Like, why not just use your money? That's less risky. Isn't it risky to use OPM?
I don't think so, as long as you're a good steward of that money. And I think that that's your duty as the person that is, being entrusted to take care of that. And it's also the knowledge that you build up as a result of doing deals, that you're acquiring them at the right price. You know what I mean? There's an equity buffer there. Being able to explain all of that in terms that your lenders will understand, and just making good on your word, right? This is a relationship business first and foremost, and maintaining that your word and your integrity is so important, I would say.
Let's keep playing devil's advocate. Well, Mike, my real estate agent said there's no good deals in this market, so I should just wait.
Well, I mean, I think there's always deals to be had. It's just you need to create those deals, right? And it's perhaps looking through a different lens than, someone that's selling commercially. There's wholesalers out there. There's doing your own marketing and getting your own deals, right? Looking at things from the lens of how can I solve a problem, right? As opposed to just going, oh, that's a problem, and then just stop. It's like, how can I solve some problem? And there's always problems to be solved. So if you take that view, I think you'll flourish in any market.
Okay, one more. How about this one? People who get a coach are just lazy, and people who join communities just aren't capable of doing it on their own. Just do it by yourself. You don't need people.
Hmm. I would say, like, anybody that's watched a sporting event and seen, the likes of Nicholas or Tiger Woods or Michael Jordan, they all had coaches. Those guys are not lazy. There's just a way of bringing somebody in that can look at it and identify your blind spots that only a coach can do. And in terms of the community, I think it's one of the most powerful things that you can enroll yourself in, is because you're being supported by a bunch of people that want the same things as you. Because God knows there's enough naysayers out there that are going to try to drag you back to their reality. And, having that fellowship is very important.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to understand from you, like, this show's about getting to know you, the student, the community member, the winner. What is it that drives you forward? Like, why real estate? Why not just continue on with law enforcement or something? Like, what's your passion, purpose, motivation behind doing real estate as a full-time thing?
I've always loved it. I'm not sure exactly what got the bug in me, but I found out later in life that, my dad's dad was a builder. My dad built, additions and sheds and different things, and I was there always handing the tools. And so I think it's in my blood to do this kind of work. But in terms of, and then there's the leverage that, you can build passive income, you can build wealth through real estate. That appeals to me. It's not trading time for cash. You can build a real business around it. But the purpose behind it is more the financial freedom so that I can pursue, to touch on Tony, one of your students. Like, when I met him, I was just in awe of kind of what he's achieved. And, specifically going to El Salvador and building homes for women that, single moms that lived in the jungle effectively. To be able to have the gift that we've been given, to live in the country that we live in, the resources, the education, all of the things that we take for granted, to be able to go share that with somebody else in some place that perhaps they never even have the ability to thank you for what you've done, is just a beautiful thing. And that's part of the purpose-built business that I'm creating. And so to travel, to go to those places, to volunteer, to build, to share the knowledge and pass it on, that's the legacy that I'm creating. And that's really the reason behind it.
Yeah. What's interesting is we live in Canada with so much opportunity. And if you're a Canadian hearing me, or you're a newcomer to Canada, you've got Canada as a great market to buy real estate. You've also got America right next to you. And after COVID, we live in a digital world. And so everything you need access to is available through your computer. Everything from leads to raising capital. You can do all of it through your computer and your phone. Like, real estate investing is a digital business, which is not how it used to be. It used to be like, if your dad was a builder, you're kind of a builder. If your dad was a rehabber, you're kind of a rehabber. And it was much more like strategy specific, where today it's more strategy agnostic. Like, we can do different things depending on the cycle. And we're not tied to being a home flipper or tied to being a landlord. We can move. We're very mobile in how we do this. And so you're kind of a tech, I wouldn't say nerd, but tech guy, and you enjoy technology quite a bit. Nerd. Okay, let's say what it is. You're a tech nerd. And so, being more of a tech nerd, how have you seen the shift in the last decade with like tools and resources? Like, give us a tech nerd's viewpoint over like the digital nature of real estate investing from your lens.
Yeah, like I said, when I was first kind of exposed to it, it was literally flyers, like almost like the penny saver that you'd pick up, and you'd be looking at places and circling them, and calling agents, and they'd come with their giant book of all the listings, and it was crazy to think that that's the way things were done, to like now PropStream. You know what I mean? Like, it's, for anyone that doesn't know, like, the amount of information and aggregated data and the way we can manipulate it now. And, as you said, it's, the ability to connect from across the world on a laptop and do business wherever you want is now a reality. And I think, unless you've experienced the paper side of it, you might maybe miss that a little bit or take it for granted. And, the processes and the automations and the AI and just everything, like high levels, just unbelievable. When I saw that, I was like, whoa, it just blew my mind as to how we can create so many efficiencies. We can do so many automated things, the ringless voicemails, like, the automated follow-ups and voice AI agents. It's an incredible time. It's an incredible time to do real estate as a business, and it's just an incredible time to be alive as far as I'm concerned.
I think so too. If you remember back in the day, like I used to deliver the penny saver, they would pay us $5 a week. And so my brother and I would have to go and bundle them first. And so our fingers would be black from all of the ink bundling them. And that took like 2 hours. And my mom let us watch like Xena Warrior Princess while we were doing it so we wouldn't be bored out of our minds. And then on Sunday, we would have to go and deliver the actual newspapers. And then we'd get chased by the dogs. And so we had a little fear of dogs. But I remember the classifieds, and you'd open the classifieds. And when I started in 06, I was looking literally through classifieds for real estate deals. And I think you pay by the letter or whatever. And so every description was like this big. You guys remember it was like 3BD, 2BA, didn't even finish the bath part, right? Windsor West, right? 79,000. That was the whole listing. We didn't know if it was a deal, motivated seller, if there was a dog. I didn't know. It was just like in the little newspaper article, right? And so we would just like drive down the street, and sometimes they'd have a sign, and we'd just be looking at the newspaper, looking at the house. And when they finally started putting pictures in the newspaper, that was game changing. I was like, wow, it actually looks like the house. I'm not buying that shed over there. I think real estate is very interesting. If you live in Canada, we often don't have enough perspective how low the risk with real estate actually is. I think we think real estate is a risky business, and so we're afraid to make a mistake. And what I would say with real estate is you don't make mistakes, you make investments. And so if you buy a house and you've overpaid, you simply have to wait longer to sell it. That's the downside. Because real estate historically has higher highs and higher lows, and it continues to go up in value. And so, Mike, I think real estate, there's this very probably popular opinion that it could be risky. Whereas I have found that the riskiest thing is to not own real estate. And so if you just buy real estate, the market will work harder than you in the next 20 years. If you simply buy the real estate, it will go up in value. Mike, what's actually risky in your opinion about real estate? And what's maybe a misconception around risk? Because a lot of people I find are playing small and timid, and they're afraid and they're worried all the time. And I'm like, you don't need to be worried. You just need more real estate. So Mike, maybe I'm lost. Maybe I'm delusional because I've done 300 deals. But what's your perspective from your standpoint on the risk in real estate?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think I saw a video actually that Cardone did, and he's like, my biggest regrets in real estate is not buying enough real estate, is selling real estate that I owned. And I was like, yeah, that's 100% true. It's the risk is not owning it. The risk is not using leverage to your greatest ability. And the risk is not educating yourself on risk, whereas a lot of people are like, well, in the bygone era of like defined benefit pensions and like, stay in your company for 30 years. And like, to me, putting all your eggs in one basket is risky, not having multiple streams of income, not educating yourself on that, right? On finance. I read somewhere that most people spend more time investigating where they're taking their vacation than they do on their own personal finance, right? So I think that that's the big risk. And I think people don't want to spend the time and the energy and the money or whatever to learn. And so they just make up that excuse that this is too risky. Oh, I have an uncle that had a rental property and he was fixing toilets all the time. It's those kind of things that are just more excuses to save themselves from doing the work. That's my personal opinion. And granted, I weathered a couple of real estate cycles, and I've seen, like you said, buying at the right time versus or paying too much, really. And I've learned from it, right? So there wasn't a mistake. That wasn't a risk. That was just a lesson. And so here I am, and I plan on doing this forever. Right.
It's a very forgiving business, man. Like, I think most of us, we maybe fail to understand how forgiving real estate is. If we bought anything else that was like a perishable item and it goes down in value, real estate goes up in value. and it's insured. And so it can't go up in smoke because it's insured. And so it keeps going up in value. And so there's a principle called the TAM, the total addressable market, which you know. And it's like, what's the total size of your portfolio? Okay. And you start to think about the size of the market, and then you start to think about the assets under management, AUM. And so TAM plus AUM starts to give you a perspective. And so if Windsor has 1,000 listings, and I can be buying, let's just say, 20 properties a month or something, then it would give me like a pretty cool overview of how big the market size is and how big I'm growing in relation to the market size. And if my AUM is $10 million and I have $10 million worth of real estate, then and it grows at 5% a year, then I'm growing at $50,000 a year, which is very, very cool. An interesting way to think about real estate is like you buy it, it goes up in value. The operational side, the paying down the debt, that's why we have customers called tenants. And so that's the wealth side of it. But I think that what we're missing in real estate, most of us, is the business development side, which is you can make 400 grand a year wholesaling, hoteling, and flipping. And you can keep 5, 10, 20 properties a year, both. And I haven't really heard anybody in that train of thought. But yet when I look at all of the real estate successful people that I know, all of them have active income and they own real estate passively, both. I haven't met anybody who only does passive, truly. And so I think the idea of like the mailbox money, someone wrote it in a book somewhere. And so all of the landlords who I know who like only live on mailbox money, it's like, you might have 50 units, but you're making $2,000 a month. And so like, I'm financially free. I'm like, well, you're financially living in a cardboard box because for $2,000 a month, you can barely get rent plus utilities, plus gas, plus groceries, plus kids' college, plus all the rest of the stuff. And so I think we all have to do something different, which is we need active income. We do. Now, we don't want active income from our job. We want to launch a business and create profit. And the profit will set you free today so that you don't have to trade your time living somebody else's dream and building their business, build your business. And my belief is if you build a real estate business, the investment comes free, meaning you get free real estate by building the actual business infrastructure. I know in the last year, Mike, just working with you and loving having you in the community, like active income is a big component. How is your mindset shifting, or what advice do you have for people who are maybe just in the landlord camp and they don't really think about active income in real estate? They think it's more of like this passive thing where you just keep dumping your 20% down and you get drips of cash flow. What's your take on it? What's your hot take?
Yeah, in some of the one-on-ones, there was a lot of clarity that was given to me from you in regards to that. And I mean, to address, I guess, again, coming from an employee mindset and a 25-year career and like the stability and the golden handcuffs and all of that, to leave that and to embark in this and as you say, eat what you kill, it's just so foreign. And I think a lot of people want the scratch off cash for life ticket, right? And that's the whole passive income dream. And it's just like, well, I bought a couple properties, now I don't have to work anymore. And it's just like, I think that's the fallacy. It's like there's always going to be an exchange of value, and that has to come from your efforts, right? So whether it's making a phone call and I caught Lisa there, like, getting $70,000 off of a deal, that's incredible, right? So, but it takes a skill set to learn that. It takes effort to go out there and do that, and to recognize all the things you need to recognize to get to that point. But I agree fully that you need to have that active income stream coming in from something, whether it's the flips or the wholesales or the wholetails. And then, definitely put some into the wealth building side of it, where you're paying down properties so that you have that cash flow in the future. So it's a balanced kind of approach.
Interesting stat. Over the last 10 years, real estate on average has increased, just looking at Canada, depending on the city, 101% in Ontario and Nova Scotia. Cities in southwestern Ontario, including St. Thomas, London, 174% growth in the last 10 years. Kind of crazy. And so my thinking on this is the growth of real estate, and that's just appreciation. That's not considering the the other parts of how we capture equity, which is we get debt and then we pay down the debt, our tenants do. And so that debt that gets paid down gets converted to equity. And so we have appreciation, we have debt repayment, which is amazing. And so my belief is, it goes back to that Robert Kiyosaki quote. Like, I really do fundamentally think this. People want safety as their number one fixation. And so they will choose a career or a job that gives them drips of money and the illusion of security. Because really, if you stop performing or they change their mind or whatever, then you're out of a job anyways. And there's really no job security. Like back in the day, right? They used to have the pension and you could get a job at GM and Chrysler's if you were in Windsor, Ontario, or Ford. And you were like, I'm making $40 an hour until my pension kicks in. I'm good, right? Until GM went bankrupt, right? And then so a lot of that safety went away. And then this is where I get really stuck. The only pension we need is a real estate pension. If you own real estate, it will provide more for you in your retirement years than a job pension will, because the job pension will not go up in value. If anything, it will go down in value because the job will pay you in cash that'll be worth less 20 years from now. And so everyone is so obsessed with cash, and what they should be obsessed with is equity. Equity is the transfers. It's when cash is afraid and depleting and losing value, it has to go into an alternative asset, real estate, gold, something hard. And so if you're like, I'm going to make $4,000 a month in my pension 20 years from now, what's it actually going to be worth in buying power? And so I think we have to get away from the illusion that, like, if I just get cash in my pension, cash flow, I'll be good. I think the cash flow is relative to the time and place that you get it. So this is why I'm saying all this. Real estate is the best pension a person can have. That's it. You want to have $10 million when you retire, have $10 million worth of paid off real estate. That is a way better plan that will continue to increase in value. And so if you don't need the 10 million at retirement, you'll continue to go up in value. And if you don't need the money, you can pass that on to your kids. And I think the worst thing that we can do is just expect that cash will solve the problem. You and I have no idea how much more money the government's going to print in the next 20 years. We have no idea. And so you're in a traditional field, law enforcement, great field to be in. I've got two of my brother-in-laws are police officers. And so, we really appreciate the serving, and you guys do an incredible job and protect us, but you don't get paid enough. Neither do teachers, by the way.
No.
Neither does anyone else who provides social service of any kind, pastors. You just don't get paid enough. You really don't. Maybe years ago you did, but today you don't. Not enough to keep up with cost of living, cost of everything that goes up. And so, Mike, what's your hot take on this? The idea that real estate pension is the only pension that we need to focus on, and we need to forget about a company paying for our retirement. That's my honest belief. You might disagree, and it's okay. We can have a heated debate. But what's your take on it for all of the people watching you? Because you will have law enforcement watching you. You'll have other people who are going to come to this show, people who have had a job for 20 years, good government jobs, secure jobs with pensions. What's your take on the pension idea and our responsibility in creating our own?
Well, I think, ultimately there's not that many left, especially indexed to inflation and all of that. Again, it comes down to a mindset and how you want to trade your time, right? Like, you're essentially trading your time, those 20 years or 30 years for this guarantee. But there's oftentimes, the sad fact that a lot of people don't live very long after their pensions. So you may have acquired this wealth, but it's not even transferable, right? So when you're gone, your family may not be left with very, very much at all. So I think, having something like real estate where, again, you're leveraging, right? So you're creating that equity on a fraction of the actual purchase amount, where no other real asset you can buy, you can do that, right? And then you have all of the, the deductions and the principal pay down, refinancing, where you can take out some of your equity tax free. There's all these different things that can be done with it. I think it's silly not to examine it and understand it, especially if you're not in a career field that provides a pension. And if you're dissatisfied, which, a lot of people seem to be these days with what they're doing for work, um, is it worth your happiness to stay at something for just the guarantee, right? Because really there is no guarantee, for the most part. Like you said, GM, Ford, Chrysler, they're here one day, they're gone the next. Um, yeah, I honestly believe that you have to examine in your heart what you truly want in
Yeah.
life, and
Yeah.
I think it's silly not to put the time in to really understand what kind of tool this is to achieve, the financial freedom you deserve.
Yeah. Let me ask you one more thing as we round out here from your perspective. And I appreciate just like you're giving us some good wisdom, some good insight. And I think it's very valuable for people watching you. And they're maybe on their own journey trying to figure out what's their next move, what's their next play. And so you've got this company, Capital. Great. Love the name. I think it's great. And you're seeing people who have access to money, OPM, they've got RSPs, they've got home equity, they've got all these different things. From your perspective, if somebody's a brand newbie, which you're not, you've obviously done deals and raised some OPM, and you've got recently got a great property under contract. What should somebody think about doing if they've got equity, if they've got RSPs? What's maybe a strategy or something they can do to get in the game, even if they're brand new? What's your advice to somebody who's, hey, Mike, I've got some resources, but I don't know where to start?
Call me. No.
Aside from calling you, what would you do if they did call you? Let's put it that way.
Well, I mean,
what are you going to do with their resources?
Yeah, a good first start is understanding kind of the model, right? Like, what is the return, right? Asking the right questions, but you have to get acquainted, and coming to something like this, or listening to the podcast, doing the research, getting yourself educated on it as much as possible. And then finding somebody that is going to marry up with you in terms of values, right? And doing your due diligence on that individual and understanding it, and not just kind of going into it like a lot of people do, for example, with RSPs or whatever. They speak to somebody that's not a fiduciary. They get advice. It's just from a salesperson, essentially. And they buy something because they were told that that's what they do. They don't understand the markets. They don't understand the management expense ratio. Like, there's so many things that they're just not aware of, and they just kind of defer to somebody that is an expert. And I would say, make yourself an expert, because it is your future, right? Spend more time on it than planning your next vacation, because it is so important. And it could be something as simple as joining a community, being around like-minded people, seeing what they're doing that are already, in the place that you want to be, and taking that counsel. I know that you've differentiated that for me as well. Like, people take advice from the wrong people. Like, what, if you need counsel, you speak to somebody that knows what they're talking about, right? That they've already demonstrated what needs to be done because they've achieved it. So it's like, just be cautious about who you're taking counsel from, and do your own due diligence, really get educated.
Yeah. Well, hey, we really appreciate having you in our community. And, you've been such a valuable member for the last year. Guys, we love Mike. It's Mike. We also call you Mr. Good Times behind your back, because you're always having a good time. And so I know you've been cruising lately, and you've been going to different places and hanging out, and you're always networking and growing, which is amazing, Mike. So we appreciate you. We very honored to have you in our community. And folks, I want you to connect with Mike. Out of Windsor, Ontario, but he's always kind of booting around somewhere. Mike, what's the best way somebody can get a hold of you after the show? How can they reach you?
Yeah, you can book a call. I love to chat about anything real estate or otherwise, on my site at cactuscapital.ca.
All right, there it is, Cactus Capital. This is the Real Estate Revival Podcast, the #1 show for Canadians that want to get results in Canada right now. And that right there is Mike, our good friend. So thank you, everybody, for watching. Get plugged in. We'd love to have you. As you guys know, we have a great time. We push for results. We do the work. Don't talk about the work. Until next time, stay focused. Keep going. Right now is your moment, so don't quit. Stay humble. God bless. Take care. Bye for now.